You know that strange feeling, right? When you're in a massive crowd, totally surrounded by people, but you feel completely and utterly alone? Well, it's a paradox that a lot of us know. But in one of the busiest, most packed cities on the planet, this feeling isn't just a fleeting thought. It's becoming a quiet epidemic. So let's dive right in and unpack what's going on. So, picture this, Mumbai. We're talking about a city that's just electric with life, with energy, and home to over 20 million people. You've got these packed local trains, streets that are just buzzing with activity. It's constant motion. On paper, this is a city that should never feel empty. And yet, for so many people living there, it absolutely does. And this quote, this one really gets to the heart of it. It was pulled from an online community, and it just says it all, doesn't it? 1 million people around me, but I've never felt so alone. That's the voice of someone who's right in the middle of it all, but feels a world away. And believe me, this isn't just one isolated comment. It's a feeling that comes up again and again.
All right, so this brings us to the big question. The paradox of the megacity. How in the world can a city that literally never sleeps feel so isolating for so many people? Well, this isn't just guesswork. We're seeing a clear, recurring theme based on an analysis of thousands of public online conversations.
And this is where we're getting our insights for this whole breakdown. We're looking at Reddit communities like R Mumbai and R Powai, where you can find literally thousands of posts. These are real people, reaching out, trying to find some kind of connection. And in the process, they're giving us this incredibly raw, unfiltered window into what feels like a growing social crisis.
Okay, so now let's talk numbers, the data behind the disconnect. To really grasp how big this is, we have to look at the data behind all these posts. Who's feeling this loneliness, and what are they really looking for? The patterns that emerge are, well, they're pretty surprising.
Okay, get this. The gender breakdown is staggering. A full 82% of these posts, these public calls for connection, are coming from men. Just let that sink in. This points to a really significant and, frankly, often unspoken problem of male loneliness and isolation in the city. So who are these guys? Well, if we look at the age groups, it's pretty clear this isn't just a problem for one generation. But man, it really skews young. You've got 40% between 18 and 25, and another 35% from 26 to 35. That's 3/4 of everyone posting who are under 35. These are folks right in the prime of their lives, building careers, figuring things out, and they're really struggling to connect.
And the emotions people are expressing, it's a real mix. No surprise, loneliness is the big one. It shows up in about 64% of posts. But look at what's right behind it, frustration. Almost half of the people are just plain fed up with how hard it is to meet people. And what's really interesting is that even with all that, you still see hope in about 1/3 of the posts. There's this feeling that maybe, just maybe, things can get better. So the numbers tell one part of the story, right? The what. But to really get the why, we have to look at the personal stories. Let's move from the statistics to the actual narratives of what's going on. Okay, so a huge theme that comes up over and over again is this idea of the post-college friendship fade. Think about it. In school or college, your friends are just there. It's a built-in community. But then you graduate, and suddenly you're in the real world of crazy commutes and long work hours, and that whole structure just vanishes. And a lot of friendships, well, they vanish right along with it.
And this quote just nails that feeling. Most friends move to different cities or are caught up in their own lives. It's exhausting and lonesome. It's not some big dramatic fight that ends friendships. It's the slow drift. Life just happens, People get busy, they move away, and trying to keep those connections alive starts to feel, well, exhausting.
Another really common theme is this feeling of emptiness, even with all the modern ways we have to connect. It's a weird paradox, isn't it? We have all these apps and platforms, so many easy ways to meet people, but finding a real, genuine connection feels harder than ever. The tools that are supposed to bring us together are actually making some people feel even more alone.
Yeah, this user basically sums up the entire problem. Networking feels forced, dating apps feel transactional, meetups feel awkward. Every so-called solution has a catch. Networking isn't the same as making a friend, dating apps can feel like you're just shopping for people, and walking into a room full of strangers for a meetup, super awkward. What this all boils down to is that people are craving authenticity. They don't just want something to do, they want someone to be real with. Okay, let's circle back to that wild statistic we saw earlier, the 82% of posts from men. What's going on there? Well, when you look closer, you see a really specific pattern. Men often talk about their loneliness in a different way. It's not usually a direct emotional, I feel so alone.
It's more like they're presenting a practical problem that needs a solution. It's like disguised vulnerability.
So what does that actually look like in a post? Well, instead of saying, I'm lonely and need a friend, it might be framed as, hey, what are some good clubs to join? Or any suggestions for making friends if I don't like bars or pubs? They're looking for structure, a book club, a hiking group, whatever. It's like asking for emotional connection feels too vulnerable, so they ask for logistical advice instead. They're reaching for depth by talking about practicalities.
All right, so let's shift gears a bit. We're talking about the search for real connection. Because despite all these hurdles, people are not just sitting back and accepting it. They are actively trying to find their tribe. This is all driven by that deep, fundamental human need to belong. But, and this is a big but, when that search doesn't lead anywhere, the consequences can get really serious.
So what is it that people really want? When you boil it all down, the number one thing is genuine friendship. We're not talking about a casual hangout once in a blue moon or a new LinkedIn connection. People are looking for real, meaningful, long-term friendships. And you can see that in the other things they ask for too. Regular meetups and safe spaces to just talk. It's all about consistency and depth.
But that raises a really important question. What happens when this search becomes a real struggle? When that basic human need for connection goes unmet for a long, long time? Well, that's when the signals can become much, much more serious.
And I want to be really clear about this next part, because it's incredibly important. The analysis found posts with explicit crisis signals. That includes posts mentioning suicidal thoughts. So for some people, this goes way beyond just feeling a bit blue. This is about psychological survival. It shows just how fundamental that need for connection really is. And because of that, we need to pause and make sure these resources are front and center. If you or anyone you know is going through a tough time, please know there is help. These are confidential, professional support lines available in India. Seriously, please don't hesitate to reach out.
Okay, so after looking at all this heavy stuff, the natural question is, what can actually be done? What could help build these bridges from isolation to community? The good news is, the data doesn't just highlight the problem. It also hints at some real, practical solutions.
And first things first, we have to be absolutely crystal clear on what the goal is. The core need here is for meaningful friendships. It's not about just filling a calendar with activities. It's about creating authentic connections and a real sense of belonging.
So based on what people are actually asking for, here are 4 paths that could lead to a stronger community. Number 1, offer low-pressure events that happen regularly. Think weekly board game nights or weekend walks, something easy to join. Number 2, create more safe, non-judgmental third places, places that aren't home and aren't work. 3, specifically design things for the huge number of people who aren't into the clubbing or bar scene. And finally, number 4, make the ultimate goal of all these things the creation of long-term, real friendships.
And that brings us right back to where we started, with that big paradox. In a city of millions, the challenge isn't about the number of people around you. The real challenge is finding your people. So maybe the biggest task of all isn't navigating a crowd of millions, but building a real community with just a few. It's a question worth thinking about no matter where you live.